Kamala's message was, like, we got to protect these institutions, like capitalism and the rule of law and all these things that, again, we love, right? Sign me up. Sign me up. But maybe what voters would respond to is a much more burn it all down liberal populist message. Like, for instance, the billionaires are blood-sucking oligarchs. Hello, everyone. This is JVL here with my best friend, Sarah Longwell, publisher of The Bulwark on The Secret Show, and also Tim Miller.
Is that like the McDonald's theme song? What was that for
I don't
Tim?
know, man. I'm just this is a weird mashup. This is the next level, but we're actually going to treat it like it's The Secret Show, where it's all sort of, lights are down. We're having a couple ciggies. Little bit of yeah.
Do you know that? So when we did The Secret Show maybe it was last week, and I was just like in my t-shirt, and I was got wound up and had like a bit of a yell at one point. That we put it out when somebody made it public. We did, I think, and Fox News grabbed it and started running it on Fox News as like, and they took it out of context because it was me kind of hectoring Republicans. It was me saying like, this is on you, like George W. Bush and the generals. And instead it just sounded like I was yelling at voters. So I was nice.
Maybe
I'm just saying, Tim, it's not always a secret.
Yeah, well
maybe we shouldn't put it on the interwebs.
That's actually a good transition to one of my things I want to talk about, which is
please.
I've really decided to not give a fuck about those people. Like I had there's a whole cottage industry out there of Republican types and even media types and even some of us who are like, the Never Trumpers really missed this, and like this is a wake up call, and they don't understand the people and understand the voters, and like as part of my,
all those things are true.
Yeah, as part of my complex 9-layer cake of depression, I was taking some of that in upon myself, and I was like, maybe I did miss something. Maybe I was, and then as I was thinking about this last night after a cigarette, I was like, wait, no. Fuck you. I'm right. We're right. I'm right. I'm going to be right about what happened with Donald Trump. My obligation as a commentator is only to say what I believe to be true. Like that is it. Like that is the right. Is that not the limit of my obligation? I mean, do I have an obligation to try to persuade the people of Waukesha County that what I believe to be true is true? I don't think so. My obligation is to say what is true. I believe that everything that we warned about Donald Trump is going to come to pass in some degree or another. And the people, they're a bare majority, kind of small majority, but a bare majority of people disagreed and are not worried about that and are going to support him anyway. I don't understand. I don't really get the like, I've taken off the hair shirt, I guess is what I'm saying. I've moved into defiance mode. So.
Well, that's good. But I don't think, I guess I saw Scott Jennings do this. Scott Jennings is just taking shots while he has a chance to take shots.
Sure.
Like, that's all. He's feeling himself, and he wants to be like, those Never Trumpers who were so mean to me, they've been lecturing voters, but we weren't. We were lecturing Scott Jennings because Scott Jennings was a Never Trumper who decided, and it's funny how like their thing is like, they built it so they could all have beach houses. I'm like, bro, you got your CNN contract to be like a Trump surrogate, and you're going to go into the White. Like, we all know what you did. Don't shut up. This is all projection from you. And the Bulwark maybe became profitable like 5 seconds ago. So like, JVL hasn't gotten a chance to, run to the casino with it yet. So anyway,
the yacht, my big yacht, it's coming.
Yeah, it is.
We're going to have boat parades coming soon. Anti-Trump boat parades.
Anyway, here's the thing, the analysis. So I think, Tim, we're talking about a couple different things. So
that's true.
Part of it is for us to be like, to say what's happening in the Republican Party. And I think that is the different question from like whether what's happening is like good or bad, right or wrong. And I think that, the argument that JVL and I are having, right? I don't think there was any illusions about the fact that voters were feeling like the economy wasn't good and that they were being hurt by inflation. the question was whether or not JVL thought that was like a fair thing to vote on in the face of, I think, Donald Trump's many problems, and also like how there were lots of people who were going to vote for him who did not, who were actually on the upside of the of a positive macro economy. Now, I was always like, look, there's a lot of people though who don't feel that, a lot of young people, people who make $100,000, and like those people broke for Trump in a major way, and that made a big difference in this election. So that's an analysis piece, right? And I think, look, I was doing the pod with George yesterday, and George was like, I can't believe anybody would vote over the price of eggs versus, American democracy.
Yeah,
and
Nicholas
I'm like, well, I do not think that. Okay, I think that it is very difficult to make a case about American democracy in an abstract way when somebody's like, my grocery bill has gone up $100 and I don't have $100 for my grocery bill to go up.
Yeah. Like, no, I agree with that. No, I agree. So look, you're right. There's two elements here that I'm lashing out about. One is, was the analysis correct? I stand by it. Like I think on the very last podcast, I expected that Kamala Harris would have a narrow victory through the blue wall. That obviously turned out to be wrong, but it was like caveated gravely. And it was 3 weeks ago on this next level where I was like, we need to end the next level with me telling you the truth that I think Donald Trump is going to win. Like that was like 3 weeks ago, and like it changed because of the fucking Ann Seltzer poll. So yeah, like my analysis was kind of graded by the New York Times Siena poll, and so that's a Nate Cohn and an Ann Seltzer problem. And, I don't know, they can put on their hair shirts while they drink their seltzer. So like there's an analysis question, but then there also is like this mission of like, whither or never Trump, like whither anti-Trump, like wasn't the raison d'etre to galvanize people. And I was like, I wish we would have galvanized more people, but like the purpose, the existence is to raise the alarm, right? Is to create a gathering of people who are like-minded about the alarm, and to try to raise it and to cover it and to analyze it. And if we, are Paul Revere, like riding the horse through the villages, telling them that the fascists are coming, and everybody's like, whatever, bruh. I don't know. Like, I don't know what more. You know what I mean? Like, I stand by the warning. Well, I stand by the warning, and I think it will bear itself out. I hope not. I would love to be wrong, actually, but I think it will. Well,
also, like, in Pennsylvania, 8% of Republicans voted for Harris. Like, I like in some of these states where we're in the WOW counties in Wisconsin, she did better. It's like one of the few places she improved. The problem is, and I think that there needs to be some real grappling with this, is that like parts of the Democratic coalition that they just sort of rely on, like there's a slide with black men. The Republicans now have a much more multiracial working class coalition. They are focused on non-college voters, of which there are many more than college educated voters, especially low propensity ones who only turn out in elections and who do not follow the news at all, and who are voting on like very specific things that are personal to them, like their costs or like their housing or whatever. And so I think that that's what I think is happening. And like, I feel like that is, that's what we are focused on, trying to pull those people. And I feel like those, and that's just people who still identify as a Republican. We already have a huge swath of those college educated suburban voters who are now firmly moved to independents and Democrats. Right. And so they are traded. Yeah. But they got swamped. That's right. And we always knew, like we argued this all the time around how these non-college voters, and this was it. She had to do four points better with non-college white women. And she didn't, because there was always this tension with the non-college white women around abortion rights, and how people cared about that. And the fact that a lot of these women are the primary shoppers, and the people who do their household budgets, and felt really unhappy with the economy.
All right. Well, I will put on my hair shirt then.
Okay, great.
Because I've been
wearing mine for 2 days. I'm just saying. It was like finally after 48 hours, I was like, fuck this.
Well, so I feel as though there are two parts of my analytical worldview which were deeply wrong, in which I need to do some examining of. The first was, I always said 50-50 chance he could win. Right. We would at our bus tour, I would tell people, look, my heart tells me he's going to win. My head says that she is, but my heart says Trump will.
Yeah. People should re-listen to that Pittsburgh stop on the bus tour. Which stop was it? Where I got a little too drunk and a little too dark.
Yeah, it was Pittsburgh.
But I really did not take, and you and I talked about this yesterday, Sarah. I did not countenance the possibility that he could win a flat majority of the popular vote.
Me neither.
I did not believe that was an outcome that was on the table. And that's a huge mistake and a huge blind spot. And that stems from me not understanding America. That's on me. But the second thing I worry about is, I don't know that the answer is that Democrats need to be more moderate and centrist. Maybe that's an answer. I don't know. But so what we're looking at right now is we're looking at all these counties where Trump is like +3, +5 versus his margin in 2020. What we don't know is, did he increase his number of votes, or did her votes just disappear? And so far it looks like Democrats simply didn't show up. Maybe the answer is, and we wouldn't like this because we are not progressives. We are not commies. Except for one of us. Maybe the answer is Democrats need to be providing something that is much more demagogic, populist, and radical. And that is what will get the blood up.
Sarah's face is so good.
I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying we ought to consider that that's a possibility.
As usual, JVL is producing the commie view, Sarah the counter view, and I'm going to be in the middle ground. So Sarah, why don't you go? And then
synthesis.
I can be Goldilocks.
Synthesis. Again,
I can synthesize.
I'm not saying yes. I'm just saying if the case is, if she had the same Biden numbers and Trump's were just 3% higher, then I would say, okay, well then the answer is probably more centrism, more moderation. But if the answer is that she ran with Liz Cheney and she ran on I'm going to have a lethal fighting force and I own a gun, bitches, and I love capitalism and small business owners, and the number of votes she got, or that the Democrats got to 2020 went, then maybe the answer is that they need to be a little bit further out there and provide something more radical.
Yeah, this is super wrong in my opinion.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's super wrong.
Well, let me just explain what I think is especially wrong about it, which is yes, she in her the last 100 days, right, and then in the last 15 days of those 100 days or 20 days of those 100 days, she was doing a closing argument with Liz Cheney. But videos exist, man. The number one ad that people ran or that people saw was the ad of Kamala Harris back in 2019 talking about gender reassignment surgery, taxpayer-funded gender reassignment surgery for trans criminals, convicts. And if you watch the ad, it includes shocking imagery of kind of bearded women, things that would shock the sensibilities of many in the Midwest. And it's Kamala Harris on tape being yes, I think we should fund these. Now, the fact that it happened a grand total of twice, there are 2 gender reassignment surgeries that happened for prisoners. The fact is that was the ad that Donald Trump and his team put the most money behind. And they put a lot of other money behind. She's a radical progressive from California, which is the last time voters had seen her was that person. I'll tell you something I hear in the focus groups that I think to me is instructive. When she shows back up as a pretty different candidate than the person that she was back in 2019, voters are huh. Well, and let me tell you one thing voters really understand. They're I know when someone's lying to me to get my vote. And they thought Yeah. So
Do they know?
Listen, Donald Trump's been saying the same things for the last 3 elections, right? They know him very, very well. And especially for younger voters, we talk about this all the time, they do not see him as the aberration that people like us see him as. Now, I do think that's a failure of us being able to explain why he's such an aberration. But and in any event, I think that it was the fact that people perceived her as a radical trying to be more moderate to win an election. And they didn't feel like they really knew exactly who she was. And I'll tell you, voters will take an authentic person saying insane garbage now. And this is a manifestation of our new culture, whether it is the marinating for decades in anti-heroes, whether it's the way people now live on TikTok and in the podcasts in this universe of like, I want this person to both like say the things I want to say on policy, but I just like mostly I want them to be real with me. And this not a regular politician that I hear over and over and over again for why people like Donald Trump. That was always my big fear. I know I said it on here that like my fear was that people would perceive her as a regular politician. And that is just, especially for young people where she really underperformed. They don't want regular politicians.
All right. Tim, before you synthesize, let me offer the counter view of this, which is, I mean, if the answer is you can't run a regular politician, then Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer need to leave because they're not going to be able to run for president. Gavin probably can't run for president, right? I mean, he is just a regular politician. It has to be somebody like Fetterman or Mark Cuban, somebody who codes wildly different. But when I talk about the radical stuff, you're hearing me saying more like progressive, and what I mean is more anti-institutional. Like Kamala's message was like, we got to protect these institutions like capitalism and the rule of law and all these things that, again, we love, right? Sign me up. But maybe what voters would respond to is a much more burn it all down liberal populist message. Like, for instance, the billionaires are blood-sucking oligarchs, and we need to go after Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and confiscate their wealth, or like blah, 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 right? You could just like, they're the ones who rigged the system against us. They're the reason you can't get ahead, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that is more fruitful. Again, I'm just proposing it. I'm not saying it necessarily is true. And maybe you can do that while also, throwing trans people under the bus and, and throwing immigrants under the bus too. I don't know. But yeah, I just worry that it isn't the case that the things that I like are going to be popular enough to get to 51%. That's my concern.
Yeah, I think we should be careful about overreading too much.
Also fair. Maybe it's just like inflation and the anti-incumbent bias that's all the whole world, right? That's the other problem with this. Maybe like the answer is as simple as that, and all of these other explanations are overreading.
Well, I do think it's not overreading to say that Americans are like incredibly desensitized to a bunch of things that should matter around character, rule of law, and all those other things. But I also just don't think it should be like, okay, Trump won this way, so the correct thing to do is to do exactly what he's doing. This time of year, I find myself reflecting on things I'm grateful for, like family, friends, and my health. Another thing I'm grateful for, the fact that I can help my skin stay healthy and resilient as I get older. And boy, am I getting older. And that's thanks to today's sponsor, OneSkin. Their scientifically proven skincare routine has made a noticeable difference in how my skin looks and feels. Their OS1 peptide works at the cellular level to switch off the dysfunctional cells that cause your skin to become dry, dull, and age faster than it needs to. To celebrate the holidays, OneSkin has introduced their limited edition holiday bundle featuring travel sizes of OS1 Face, OS1 Eye, and OS1 Body, all in this chic leatherette bag. It's the perfect gift, but you actually may want to keep this one for yourself. I got one and I'm keeping it. Take advantage of this exclusive bundle while it lasts. As a listener, you'll get 15% off using code THENEXTLEVEL when you check out at oneskin.co. Invest in your skin's long-term health this holiday season because healthy skin is a gift. I know. Look here. Look at my eyes. Both Tim and I have been using it. George uses it. We all keep it right by our desks. Mine's sitting right here. I've been using it because people keep, emailing me to say, are you too tired? So I just keep putting it on to keep my skin smooth. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code The Next Level at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code The Next Level. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. We have only one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know how much of a synthesis I'm going to be because I'm kind of on JVL's side of this. But I want to explain why. Just maybe less radical than you. But I want to explain why, though. And maybe my language will be more appealing to Sarah than your Joker language. But like, it is obviously true that a big part of the story is inflation and anti-incumbent bias and global stuff. That said, like, I looked at a chart this morning. I forget who posted it, so I apologize to them, of like the quadrants of education and income, and like which, what candidate's share of the vote is from high education, high income versus low education, low income, etc. And the Kamala Harris, like where she fit in that was like closest to Bob Dole and Mitt Romney. Like of the past, 40 years of candidates. That's a bad quadrant to be in, as evidenced by the fact that all three lost, right? And like it's not good.
But it makes sense that we all liked her because we all liked Bob Dole and Mitt Romney, right?
Yeah, all my favorite candidates. It's a bad quadrant to be in, though. And I'm happy to give away some of my policy priors to protect from 12 years of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance or whatever. So that means the Democrats have to do something to appeal to working class people that's a little bit different, that is not just, maybe it's just Donald Trump crashes the economy and they don't actually have to do anything. That's one possibility. But if that doesn't happen, they have to come up with another idea if that is not the answer, right? And so to me, this sort of stuff, like I had a very long podcast I did yesterday with Pablo Torre, about which whatever, you can Google it. It's Pablo Torre Finds Out. And we were talking just a lot about cultural stuff and how and he does mostly, he's like at the sports culture intersection. And it's like about how all these institutions have collapsed, right? It's not just politics, right? The democratization of everything. Like, he was doing it from his sports lens. He's talking about Sports Illustrated and, ESPN, right? Like, and all of that. And like, you could do it in any vertical, right? Like we've seen this across the board. And the Democrats have, and us, by Trump, for very defensible reasons, were forced into the situation at this anti-elite moment where everything is democratizing and everything is crumbling. We were forced into the position of being like, the institutions are strong. Like the system is good. Like the system works. Respect the system. And that just might be a losing hand, right? And like the Democrats just might need to find themselves in a position of being anti-system in a way that is not the Joker, that is not, we're gonna, seize the means of production, but in some other way that is more populist, that maybe is economically populist, that maybe is just about punishing the oligarchs. Trump might make that very easy over the next 4 years by, giving handouts to Elon Musk and all these other guys whose profiles are going to improve. I'm open to what it looks like, I guess, but I'm just saying I feel like that those of us who are kind of more that thinks the system is good, might we might need to change the system to save the system. I guess we might need to be a little bit more radical in the way that you view the system to save the system. we're 3 days out, and I've slept like 12 hours, and I haven't been home, and I'm like living in no exit in this little fucking hotel room in 30 Rock, and I think I'm losing my mind. So I reserve the right to change this view next week. But anyway, that's what
the secret. See, on the Secret Show, Tim.
Yeah,
we're not taking stands. We're just trying on ideas.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where I'm at.
That's fine.
Sarah, did that shirt fit for you a little bit better, or still no?
You know, I don't know if you listened to JVL and I do our secret pod yesterday.
I caught like the first half, and then I forget what happened, but I had to change.
So it's okay. Well, in the second half, one of the things that I said that I would say is, I guess could fit a little bit into this, is that I am thinking more about what income inequality is potentially sort of doing to voters, right? Like if you look, Donald Trump is winning, right? People who make under $100,000. And I think that there's like all these cultural factors that are shifting people. So one of them is the way that social media, it used to be that like if you lived in a neighborhood, right, people had in your neighborhood, the people you saw had roughly the same kind of stuff you did, right? They had the same kind of car, the same kind of house. And now everybody's got like a better life on their phone that they see other people having. And I think it's causing a level of grievance. And that is like slightly different. And people are like, well, why can't I access this life? And those kind of disparities sort of always existed, but they are much more in people's faces. Look, I also think, like I said, 20 years of marinating and Tony Soprano like anti-heroes.
Just really quick, one thought on the phone, because I've been wanting to say this on every podcast. I just never get the right to. That chart that everybody keeps showing about how the incumbent parties did the worst in 2024 about any year since 1905 or whatever. I keep looking at it. I'm like, yeah, okay. Inflation is annoying. I get it. I'm not trying to understate it, but like, there have been so many bad years since 1905 that were objectively, that were objectively worse than 2024 across every vertical: economic, war, right? Like pandemic, right? And so, like, the phone has to be a part of the story, right? Like if people are so mad, like they can have both legitimate grievance about how annoying the inflation is, but also it's being exacerbated by the phone.
Absolutely. And you're in silos, and like, look, making people mad is like the coin of the realm for a lot of this stuff. And as a result, that's why I think it's not just the anti-incumbent sentiment right now. Like, I think we're going to be in a thing where being an incumbent is no longer like a fundamental that works in your favor, right? That for a long time, incumbency was like a thing that people really needed. And now I think it might either be a wash or actually a net negative, because we're going to be in this perpetual change election if people always are angry because their phone gives them like a distorted sense always of like, it's better over there somewhere. Yeah. And also, oh my gosh, now I know what the people who live over there on that other side of the mountain that I didn't used to know, I know what they think. And I think what they think sucks. And I'm mad about that.
Like, imagine living in Waukesha County in 1984 and like knowing what the protesters on Columbia University's campus were doing every day. Like you had no idea. Maybe there's one article about it in the paper or something, right? You know what I mean? Now it's in your phone constantly.
Well, this is our 6th consecutive change election, right? Going back to 2014. Like, I mean, that is weird. I guess I want to ask you a question, Sarah. If and this goes to the sort of fundamental change in what people want from a candidate. If I was a genie and I popped out of the bottle and I said to you, all right, it's November 8th, 2024. If you want her, I can give you Gretchen Whitmer as the Democratic nominee in 2028.
Pass.
I can't promise you anything else, but if you want her, you can have her.
I'll take the field.
Would you take it or no?
What are my other options?
The other option is like, I don't use my genie powers and we just like let it ride on, and who knows?
Is your immediate reaction, because I got some like personal DMs about JVL saying it can never be a woman, like we can't run a woman again, where people are like, he is being so deeply misogynistic and awful. And I did write back in your defense to say like, no, he thinks other people are misogynistic and awful, and that's why he doesn't think a woman can get elected. Is your question though, JVL, can she get elected? Like, could Gretchen Whitmer get elected in 2028?
Would you like her chances as what she is, which is both a woman and very moderate, but also
Not
like
very
a
moderate.
politician?
She's not very moderate.
Yeah.
Somewhat moderate, but also like a politician.
But
Like,
she's better than a regular politician. She knows how to talk to people. Have you ever heard her do like a radio interview?
Yeah, Kamala Harris.
Like, she seems like a regular person.
So is Kamala Harris. No. I mean, but a regular politician, right? I mean,
No,
this is-
Can I interject something
Okay.
into this convo really
Please.
quick? Because I've had several people message this to me when we start doing all this stuff. Sarah's got the messages about the woman. I think it's going to be hard for the Democrats to nominate a woman in 2028. I think for some practical reasons that are maybe unfair, but I just think that that's reality. As this has been coming up, there have been people actually both next to me at MSNBC and in my messages that are like, why are you guys doing this? Like, why are you guys acting like there's going to be an election in 2028? Like, why? Like, what do you mean? Like, everything's over. And like my reaction to that is that I've on every podcast I've had where I've brought up this topic, I've asked people, like, what % chance do you think it is that Trump will try to stay and that we won't have a real election in 2028? And like the answers vary, but nobody's like 100, you know? But I think that like there may be some listeners or people that are like, wait a minute, but isn't everybody talking about the end of democracy? And I think that's a fair thing to ask, which is why I bring it up, because my view of it is always like, in my mind, it's always been, no, I think that liberal democracy was on the line, that we've already seen major cracks in the rule of law and the way that our government works, and that like there's a chance Donald Trump will try to stay in power, and the chance is way too high for my liking, but that we'll likely have elections, and maybe elections that Donald Trump tries to not rig is not the right word, but tries to institute new rules that make things harder, like, whatever. There are like various things that could happen. The power of the tech oligarch of Elon between now and 2028 is only going to grow. Like, there's a lot of unknowns, but like I was never on the side that was really like, oh no, we're not going to have an election in 2028. But I think when people heard that, some people processed it differently. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out to the group.
Well, and JVL, I think, has made this point where he's like, he asked, I don't know what, we've certainly talked this. It's like, well, what percentage chance would you give that we don't have a regular election in 2028?
Like
and your point was always like, if it's 3% or 5%, like that's way too high.
Right. Yeah, right.
And so I don't think any of us are sitting here being like, there's a 95% chance that we won't have regular elections, or we won't have elections in 2026. I think we will have those things. But I also want to say that without going into too much, in the days leading up to the election, I heard from a lot of people who knew Trump personally, and there was Donald Trump was going to try to declare victory no matter what. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we are not, like, he was going to try to put pressure on state legislatures to certify alternate slate of electors. No, Donald Trump, our analysis of Donald Trump has been dead right always. This is where I guess I don't think I've been wearing, I didn't even thinking of wearing a hair shirt. I was trying to think, like, were there blind spots? Were there things that no, like, we're 100% right about Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, now, I think there's a question of like which way do his incentives go as he prepares for this next 4 years. So I'll tell you one thing, that the one piece of news that has come out that I have seen as a positive relative to like alternatives is like Susie Wiles is going to be his chief of staff.
Okay, good. Here's our next fight. Great.
So like I think Susie Wiles is a total degenerate who went to work for Donald Trump, but she is I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, she's not Laura Loomer. Like, Laura Loomer is not his chief of staff, and I think that that's good. I would. Yeah,
okay, so I want to layer something onto this, and then I'm going to give it to JVL, because I think that this will be the second time on this podcast that me and JVL are on the same side, which makes me uncomfortable. I prefer when I'm on Sarah's side. There are two items of news I've seen today.
I'm sitting right here.
The Susie Wiles news, which the Bulwark Slack, just to speak to everybody else, to show that it's really me and JVL against the world. The Bulwark Slack was like, good. This is okay, good. It could have been way worse than Susie Wiles. And I saw that news and I was like, I wanted Corey Lewandowski. And then the
I
Axios
understand.
thing, then the Axios thing came this morning that said, I think had Trump won a narrow electoral college victory where Hakeem Jeffries was the speaker, obviously that would have been very preferable, but he would have had no levers to do any economic policy except tariffs. So he would have gone all in on tariffs in that case. In this case now, if he's going to have both houses, what Axios is reporting is he's going to do handouts to oligarchs. There's going to be deregulation, extending the tax cuts, deregulation of tech and AI and crypto. There's going to be banks are going to have rules loosened on them, and that's more traditional Republican stuff. And so on the one hand, I think that you could look at that and say, Trump's going to get these business guys in there with Susie Wiles, and they're going to do tax cut deregulation stuff. And you could look at that and say that's good, or you can look at that and say, I don't know if that's good. So JVL, that's where I wanted to set the table.
Yeah, I mean, first, I just want to put a button on the will there be an election in 2028?
Sure.
Because again, this is something I said a bunch of times, both in the newsletter and on shows with you guys. It was always a question of what is the chance? And now that we have Trump, in the words of Nick Fury, until such time as the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on. And that is the only way to carry on, right? You can't just preemptively assume, well, I guess we don't get an election. No, you got to carry on as though it will.
I don't know who Nick Fury is, but that's wise.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
It's probably a wrestler.
The foreign here's the okay. So the Susie Wiles question. I mean, objectively, it's good. I think that Susie Wiles is the chief of staff. That doesn't mean that she'll. I mean, his chiefs of staff don't tend to last very long. Mick Mulvaney was chief of staff during an insurrection, wasn't he? No, I guess he was gone. It was Meadows.
No, Mark
by then,
Meadows
right?
was
Meadows
his
was
chief of staff then.
during the insurrection. So, to the extent that you could limit some damage early, probably that's good. But on the other hand, I do part of me would like voters to get the Trump that they voted for, because I think that would be an important learning experience for them. And maybe for instance, deporting 15 million immigrants, which is what he promised over and over, will turn into he deports 25,000 immigrants and then just declares victory. And it's the wall that Mexico paid for. And maybe that's good or maybe it's bad. I don't know. That's a very real question to me, because then, Trump's people never got mad that there was no wall and that Mexico didn't pay for it. They just wanted to be able to say that they wanted the wall. And maybe they won't get mad that he doesn't deport 15 million people. Maybe they just wanted to be able to rage around saying that they wished he would deport 15 million people. And maybe the human suffering is, fine, whatever. But on the other hand, maybe we need a little bit of accelerationism to head off the slow slide into autocracy. Right. I mean, because maybe the problem is that the water just keeping turned up a little bit at a time when people should see the full thing.
If there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, and boy, don't we need that right now, it is with ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I got to tell you, the past 2 weeks, I've been in a place where things are too serious for me to drink, and I intend to break that this coming tomorrow as the LSU Tigers play the Alabama Crimson Tide, and where there'll be a live tiger on the field for the first time in 50 or 60 years, because the new governor doesn't care what PETA thinks. welcome to our new world. Good luck, America. So as a result, I'll take that as my first drink before I go to Tiger Island for the tailgate. And by Sunday morning, I'll be feeling better. And by Monday morning, I'll be 100% in ship shape to podcast the end of the Democratic Republic with you. Go to zbiotics.com/nextlevel to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Next Level at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/nextlevel and use the code NEXTLEVEL at checkout for 15% off.
I had a question for you guys. What if, and this was something that was sent to me by a reader, should Democrats treat Trump the way foreign heads of state do? Right? Because foreign leaders have learned, like, just Hakeem Jeffries, just go to him and be like, sir, with tears in his eyes. You are a great man, and I am now realizing how great you are. I just want to help you out and be your partner, and then try to get, like, the protections for the things that Minority Leader Jeffries really cares about in exchange, and just sort of go along to get along. Is that a wise thing for Democrats to do? It's the realpolitik thing to do, right? I mean, all these other heads of state do that with Trump.
I think this comes down to a fundamental question that might be the new fundamental thing that divides you and Sarah. You had the are the people good was the first divide, and this might be the next one for the next 4 years, which is, I
think I won that argument, right?
Is
we now have the answer. The people are bad.
Are the good? The question is the best way to alleviate suffering and protect people to allow there to be some suffering for a while that maybe shakes things loose, shakes us from our decadent stupor? Or is the preferable thing to try to protect people as much as possible in the short term from Trump's whims and threats, because he doesn't really care about them that much, right? Like, he's not a deep ideologue. I think that's a legitimate question that we're going to have to keep talking about. Like, my instinct falls on the side of, I don't think that the Democrats should. I think that the Democrats should leave him to his own devices, and I do not think that they should try to suck up to him and get things out of him and flatter him and prey on his weaknesses. And we'll see how 2026 goes. That's my gut instinct, but again, I reserve the right to change my mind. But I think that there's a good argument on the other side.
I also want to reserve the right to change my mind and have a gut instinct. And my gut instinct is this. I do not think that they should suck up to him. Absolutely not. However, I also think that instead of full resistance mode, I don't think they should do that either. I think that the Democrats should be much more strategic about which hills they're going to die on in favor of harm mitigation, right? So I do think we have a responsibility. And I think it's a little bit of you're pissed at people. You think people are being dumb. So they wanted this, give it to them good and hard. That is I understand the impulse, but I think it's an impulse. And I think it's an impulse we should check pretty hard, because it's born from a place of anger. And it's not born from a place, it's not coming from our best self, right? And
the anger is currently convincing me that it's coming from my best self, though. The anger is convincing me that the pain, that we need pain to have recovery.
Yeah. And I guess I think that you can I think Trump is so harmful, so deeply harmful in so many ways, that you can have plenty of eye-opening moments for the voters that said, oh, I didn't mean this. I didn't want this, right? But I don't know that you want it to be at the expense of, people who are American citizens getting deported to places they've never been, right? I think that we should be in a mindset of what are the most important things to protect, and what are our hills to die on over those. And we should be in a harm mitigation mode, but I don't think you have to do it by sucking up to them. I do think you have to do it by, and this is going to be a pretty constant refrain for me, I think that making a case to the American people about things that really matter to them has got to be more like a much more basic Democratic message. Democrats don't have to decide they don't have to throw trans people under the bus per se, like JVL was saying, or throw immigrants under the bus to say like, okay, we are not going to have biological men playing women's sports. Like, to just take that stance. That's not throwing trans people under the bus, nor is saying that like we're going to have borders that we're going to enforce. And like we're going to have those are different things. And I think that I would die on a hill over them deporting the children of American citizens with their parents who are here illegally, and parents who have been here, people who've been here for 30 years. But I'm not going to die on a hill or say that if Trump wants to.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you say it again? You would die on that hill?
Yeah. The deportation of American citizens, the racist demagoguing of American citizens. Those are putting 15 million people into camps. But that is different from if they pass a really tough border security bill. I think the Democrats should work with them on that.
I think I agree with that. Not on the deportation stuff.
Right, but this is my point. My point is like choosing
people.
Look, I think if they started and said like people who are here illegally, who have come here illegally within the last 5 years, who've committed a crime. Like, if that was where they started.
Yeah, Sarah's talking. I think you guys are talking about different things. JVL is talking. Sarah's talking about like what is the rhetorical space that you're going to fight him on. JVL is like what and JVL's talking about like what. Yeah, what are the legislative roadblocks that you're going to try to throw?
Should you filibuster? Right? Like if Trump said, "I'm going to present it right." If there was such a thing as the 15 million deportation bill of 2025, and it came to the Senate, should Democrats filibuster it? And I think the answer should be no. They're happy to vote against it. Don't stop it.
There'll be much to discuss on this. My main thing thinking about all of this, as it applies to us, as it applies to me, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But I think that it should apply to Democrats broadly, and we should try to model good behavior, is that they should focus on objecting to Trump over the things that he does. Like, I think that the one thing that is... that for me feels a little over from Resistance 2017 is getting mad about shit, whatever he fucking comes out of his pie hole. Like, I think that there should be a pivot to focusing, because I think that some of the things that he did in the first term got lost because people were so outraged over the things that came out of his fucking like disgusting mouth. And so I think that is a good place to start from. And then I think that then the question is, right, like how much of the stuff that he does to just let him do, and how much of the stuff that he does do you try to restrain? And I think that's a real question.
Sarah, so a minute ago you were talking about Democrats having to message. How do they message without a leader though? Like, because there is no Democratic leader, right? If they had held the House, it would have been Hakeem Jeffries. It would have been incredibly important. But like, there is no center to the Democratic Party now. How does that work?
I think leaders do emerge in these moments. My biggest fear would be that they're bad leaders, right? That people are pretty desperate for their fighter, and you end up with somebody...
Say his name.
Yeah, like Gavin
Say
Newsom.
his name.
As opposed to, but I think there will be people who emerge, hopefully, who understand. And I also, look, I'm for this current sort of soul searching part on the Democrats to have a discussion about what it means to appeal to non-college voters. Like, they have to think about that. They cannot, demography is not destiny. Trump does not have a mandate. This isn't a wild political realignment in his direction. But Democrats are sliding with groups across the political spectrum. The Republican Party is is very focused on building a multiracial working class coalition. And it's a big coalition that is steeped in populist economics, isolationism, anti-immigration sentiment, and they do not. Nobody wants to be in foreign wars, right? It's this, and the scarcity, the way that if people feel scarcity, they then don't like it if you're sending money to Ukraine, right? They don't like it if they think immigrants are getting something that they're not, like, right? That's what Trump is appealing to, and I just think that, like, Democrats are going to have to figure out, they've been tremendously vulnerable in immigration for a long time. And I guess if we were talking about the quadrants, Donald Trump has a much more populist economic message than Republicans did in the past, and those were losers. So I'm with you that, like, some more populist economic messaging might just be where we're headed, even if I don't like it. But, like, I think there's ways to do that are really productive, and I use the word productive advisedly. Kamala did the kind of build houses, but, like, let's get some big visioning around building and around a new economic environment where, like, people feel excited and have somebody who can talk to them about that. Like, do you think that Kamala Harris, even though she ran a technically pretty good campaign, like, do you think that people felt a sense of, like, I know where this country's going under this person. I feel like this person passionately, deeply cares about my well-being and is going to figure out how to make this country be better for me. Like, if Democrats don't figure out how to talk to non-college voters about economic opportunity, and that they just feel this sense that, like, no, they're for these, like, niche demographic groups, like, that's what they're focused on, that's the fight, that's a mistake.
Our last sponsor today is HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. The holiday season is just around the corner, and we're all looking for ways to spend and stress less. HelloFresh makes mealtime nearly hassle-free with delicious, home-delivered, chef-crafted recipes that come together quick and are less expensive than takeout. Step out of your recipe rut and make fun, flavorful meals without needing to hunt for specialty ingredients. And HelloFresh's pre-portioned ingredients mean less food waste. Easily customized recipes so each meal is just the way you like it. There are always options available to trade or upgrade proteins or swap out side dishes. And did you know the Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh? And with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's something for everyone. Been leaning on HelloFresh quite a lot in our household, especially this week when feeding the children became basically optional. It was a rough week. And HelloFresh was there to help us out. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free the next level. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free the next level. Sign up with America's #1 meal kit today. I
have no objection.
Can I read you guys a couple things from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution? The AJC has an immigration reporter. You know where I'm going with this. And he went down to the Immigration Naturalization Office in Atlanta, where people come and check in. And he talked to people, and he was surprised to find that many of the people who entered the country illegally, who were there, who can't vote, said they would have voted for Trump because they don't believe that they have anything to fear. And so, for instance, one gentleman told him, right now, people are coming in who were bad in our countries and they'll be bad here. He says that migrants who are in the country working and not committing crimes should have nothing to fear. Quote, Trump doesn't want to stop immigration. He wants for it to be controlled and to block criminals from coming in and destroying the country because it's a mess. Another gentleman said, this is amazing. This is just a quote. Democrats talk about Trump saying he's going to deport everyone, but that doesn't really scare us. Everybody knows that's a lie, that he's not going to do it. We know Trump just says those things to get the gringos' votes. It's a lie that people will be stopped in the streets and if they don't have papers, okay, straight to the plane. If they catch you committing a crime, that's different. I don't know how to reconcile this with Stephen Miller standing in the Madison Square Garden and shouting, "America is for Americans and Americans only!" Like, one of these people is right and one of them is wrong. And
which is worse? I don't know. I'm in a bad place. So just let's go with this. Like, which is worse? Like, what is worse? Like, Trump just being a total farce and having it all be a like reality show for morons and a clown show where he doesn't actually care about anything and he's just appealing to people's base instincts and his bigotry and he doesn't actually care, and Elon and the fucking Jamie Dimon get a tax cut, and a couple of random rapists get deported, but nothing really, not really anything. And he tariffs a couple of things like for Elon's competitors, but not really anything else. And whatever, and like he golfs and has parties in the White House with McDonald's, and everybody's like, "Yay, we are happy we got fooled by this person. We don't care. This is just our great clown country." Is that worse, or is Trump doing what he says worse? I guess the latter's worse, but it's fucking close for me. It's a close call for me in this moment.
Not for me. I don't want Trump to do maximally painful things for all kinds of people just because we think they deserve it for voting for him.
But what would it mean if Trump doesn't do any of the things he promised and then all of the people whose promises he broke to them don't care? Because for me,
this is what is making me. This is why
it hard
makes me the Joker.
That breaks my brain a little bit in how we're supposed to move forward. Because if that's the truth, then it turns out we are in full nihilism mode and nothing matters. There's all these conversations about like what Democrats need to do and how they could reassure people and meet people. It means that none of that actually matters. And I don't know how to exist in that space.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's just go through some of the things Trump said he was going to do. Like, if Trump says he's going to suspend the Constitution, okay, if he puts Liz Cheney in front of a military tribunal, like if these things happen, do you think that's okay? You think that's like it's worth it? If he deports 15 million people and puts them in camps and they live in camps on the border states.
Okay, I don't want anything. I don't want any of that to happen. But how does this get improved if they're like Donald Trump lives in a world where there's no consequences for his actions? If the country lives in a world where there's no consequences for their actions, then how does this improve? Then fine, okay, then I guess we're just in a clown autocracy forever, where we like exist at the whims of the best lying con man. Okay, like I hear you. I'm not saying I want 15 million people to be deported, but it's just like that's why it's a closer call for me, because I'm talking about what could be rather than.
Well, let me give you a worse scenario. He deports 15 million people.
People like that,
and people like that, and he's a lot more popular as a result of it.
Yeah, that's also very, very real possibility. All of these things, by the way, the subject that unites them is that we are finding out what Americans are, and it's really uncomfortable, right? Because we're either going to find out that, there's one possibility, which is that he does all the things he promised and people rebel against it, which would be great. Fingers crossed, right? There are two wolves inside of us and the good wolf wins. But the other two possibilities are that he doesn't do it and nobody cares, or that he does it and they like it. And I'm just not feeling great about those odds, because I'm feeling like I don't understand the country anymore. I feel like an old person, right? This is what old people do. They're like, this isn't like what I remember when I was 20. The world is entirely different than it was 60 years ago, and I don't recognize it anymore. And I kind of feel like that a little bit, or a lot. That's all.
I relate to that.
Do you, Sarah? I guess this is my question. Do you think something has changed, or you think like it's all basically this is how people always have been, and we lucked into not seeing it?
No, I think that I felt, maybe it's because I listen to so many voters that I just feel like much more prepared for this. I have just listened to, I mean, go back and listen to the episode that I did with Rui. People were really mad at this episode. Both at Rui, like, listen to the Hispanic voters.
To say I'd have to go back and listen to it would imply that I listened to it the first time, which I did not.
Sure. Okay.
For self-preservation purposes.
But this is the thing. Like, okay, if you've been self-preserving and not listening to what these voters are saying, like, it's all in there. Yeah. And they've been saying it. And I don't think that they're all cartoon evil characters. And like and the reason that I think, 2022, this is one that I think about a lot. The fact that it was so important that all those election deniers lose. And they did. But the downside of that was that there were a bunch of lessons that got learned that were a little wrong, in that the electorate looks different in midterms than it does in a general election, and that Donald Trump appeals to a mass populace in ways that Democrats are struggling to do for a variety of reasons that are not because those people are bad people, but that they are just thinking about themselves, which is not a crazy thing to do. They are not thinking about democracy, and they were just like, this rich guy who says a bunch of things that I think are kind of funny but also insane, but I think he's going to like help me do better in my life.
Yeah. All right, listen, we got to wrap this up. It's been an amazing, magical secret show with all three of us here. I feel like we were all more off the leash than before. Guys, catch you next week.